we have made these podcasts an emergency variable money podcast as of late because it's difficult to try and get us all together. And whilst that includes shock results, it also includes the opportunity for Tom Aspinall to become, I don't even want to use the interim. He's the heavyweight champion of the world if he wins it. Interim, whatever, it doesn't matter. And there's also a Cage Warriors card on the same night, so got a bit of a double bill for UK fans for us to talk about. So we had to get together and talk about this card, even though by our own admission, I knew nothing about the majority of these fights on this card until looking at it a few minutes ago. But you know, that's the point of the emergency verbal money. That's what you get. Where do we start? Do you guys want to start with Cage Warriors? I feel like we probably should, right?
I suppose so, yeah. I'm gonna have to pull up the card because in contrast to Kyle, I've spent most of this week looking at the UFC card, and I'm a little bit clueless about the Cage Warriors card. But it's fine. You're getting my opinions on the fly.
I mean, I think it's a perfectly solid Cage Warriors card without being an outstanding Cage Warriors card. Generally, you would expect maybe more high-profile names for an Indigo card. It doesn't really have that, but we have Emil Brown in the main event fighting for the vacant title. So I think he's always fun to watch. So he has the potential to kind of, however the night goes. And there's going to be some fun fights there. As Cage Warriors, there always is, even if you don't know the names. But Emil Brown in the main event fighting for the title. That could be explosive if he lands that shot. We know how that guy hits.
Yeah, I was so impressed by Emil Brown last time at the O2. Like that uppercut knockout was outrageous. So I'm excited for him to get the shot. Like you said, I think that obviously we had a couple of fights get cancelled here and there. There wasn't anything like, I know that we had Darren Stewart originally in the co-main, which again I still feel like there was probably a couple of names that you would have wanted to see on this card. It's weird to have a London card and to not have a Jordan Vucenic. Would have liked to have seen Lynette Kavanagh on this card, but I assume that just couldn't happen. Some of those names that you kind of associate with these London cards and that you look to for your standout performances.
You obviously touched on the co-main event there. We've got our guy Will Curry's in the co-main event now. Mark Goddard, beware. Excited to see him back. You got lucky. You mentioned that Emil Brown uppercut. The last time I saw Emil Brown in person was the Skibinski fight, which it wasn't as good. Let's be real.
Yeah,
I do think the main event opens up a lot of opportunities, though. Especially if Emil Brown wins and becomes the champion. Like, personally, I want to see him rematch James Sheehan after Sheehan's last performance. He got a good win in Dublin. Spoke to him afterwards. That's the fight he's aiming for. But even if Yanis Bakker wins, still there's a lot of fresh faces at welterweight. We're kind of moving into a new title picture. The thing with Cage Warriors is because there's a lot of champions that win and then leave in 1 or 2 fights time. There's always a fresh batch of contenders. There's always new people getting signed. I think it's an interesting card. I've just gone down through it here. Yeah, touched on the co-main event, Will Curry as well. Let's just hope he's not elbowing people in the back of the head this time. Matt Figlak is back. How can you not like the Figlak brothers? Very, very talented pair. I saw someone else here as well that I missed. Can we
talk about Sean Da Silva?
Yes.
Very excited to see that guy back after his debut.
Yeah, very, very talented. I'm happy as well that he's getting like the featured fight slot because I think that is one of the better fights on the card. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's anything else that we need to touch on. I think we pretty much hit a lot of the big names, of course, with Cage Warriors. The big thing I think with this card that maybe is why the names don't jump out is a bunch of the MMA Fight Academy guys are on this card. I saw a video for it earlier. I think that I'm not actually entirely sure how many of them there are. I think there's like 4 or 5 of them on this card. Obviously, Teddy Stringer is the one that jumps out because he was an exciting prospect in the UK scene long before that. So I'm excited to see him in there. I know Adam Darby is also part of that team as well. And yeah, like I said, I think there's a couple others as well that I'm not 100% not sure. And I think Jimmy Quinn might be one of them. I know he was an amateur champ in Cage Warriors. And his debut ended in his pro debut was like a 10-second finish or something crazy. So that's why I think with this card. But still some good stuff on there. And I'm sure it'll deliver regardless. But then of course, for me and Steve, who will be at the event, it'll be a quick trip back in order to catch the UFC card because Madison Square Garden. It doesn't feel like when we looked through the card a minute ago, it doesn't feel quite like some of the MSG cards we've had in the past. But to counter that, I think that the two main event title fight matchups are two of the best fights you could make right now in the UFC. So, the rest of the card is kind of irrelevant when it comes to that. Do you guys want to start with the big two fights? I feel like maybe we should end on them because I don't want to leave it by being like, oh yeah, and then you can watch this fight that's pretty good,
I'm happy to go through some of the prelims first. I'm excited to see Joshua Van back at flyweight. He had a good win over Zhalgas Zhimagulov in his debut. He's coming out of Fury FC, and he's fighting Kevin Borjas, who's a guy I'm not super familiar with. I don't know if you guys are. He's a Contender Series guy off this recent season. So that's one in terms of the early prelims. I think that's the one that stands out to most in terms of European interest. We have Mark Madsen and Jared Gordon, two experienced guys. That's an interesting one as well. And Vladimir Borshev versus Nazim Sadikov. In terms of the early prelims, they're the ones that stand out to me.
Yeah, I think Sadikov and Borshev has like honestly solid potential to be one of the more like explosive fights of the night that people are maybe not looking forward to. Sadikov, if I remember correctly, beat McKinney his last time out, which is a very impressive win. And Borshev is just an absolute tank of a man with buckets of power. So yeah, I think I think that's gonna be a great fight. What else is on this card? Mateusz Rombeski versus Roosevelt Roberts. That was initially meant to be Norello Aliev, I think, was meant to be fighting Rombeski, but he had to pull out, and now Roosevelt Roberts is coming in. I don't see it ending well for Roberts.
No.
As is reflected in the betting lines, because Mateusz Rombeski is an animal. I don't remember who his last fight was against, but I remember he beaten to death with leg kicks.
Rombeski fought Loic Radzhabov last.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I remember. Yeah, that was really impressive performance.
Yeah, before that, a decision win over Nick Fiore.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, good prospect, underrated prospect.
Yeah, I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah, Roberts, good grappler, had some good performances on the most recent season of The Ultimate Fighter, so yeah. I wouldn't count him out per se, but I can see where the odds are coming from, minus 560 for Mateusz Rombeski. Ricci versus Godinez, I think, is an underrated fight.
Great fight, especially after how Loopy looked in her last one.
100%. 100%. Yeah. I think that deserves its placement high enough up on the card. Steve Erceg and Alessandro Costa. I'm not super familiar with Costa. Steve Erceg looked great in his last fight against David Dvorak. And for his debut as well, to go in against a top 10 flyweight and perform like that, I think was just really solid. Costa, I have seen him fight before. I just don't remember too much about him. I remember, again, solid competitor. Should be good enough fight. And then we're into the main card by that point. So, honestly,
to go back to the fight that Steve pulled up, because I was like, I watched all of the Contender Series last year. Let me go back and find Kevin Borjas, because I'm sure I remember him. Kevin Borjas looked fantastic on Contender Series, really good. I think he might have been. I can't remember for sure. I think he might have been the guy that Dana was like, this guy has championship capability. And he was meant to fight Van on Contender Series, and then Van ended up getting that late notice fight and got his way into the UFC like that. So yeah, definitely that one is the one to watch on those early prelims for sure. Because
I watched Contender Series all season 2, but these guys blend into one. I have no idea
tough.
Who. Yeah, I was like Kevin Borjas. I mean, he won on Contender Series, so he got the contract. Cool. Let's see how he does.
Yeah.
But you mean if Dana said that, then maybe there's something there. And Van is a guy I'm impressed with. So
definitely. Yeah, I don't watch Contender Series very, very frequently, but I do remember seeing some clips of Borjas I'm impressed. I want to see how it goes. I like when there's fights like this on the early prelims because it can really get you in the mood for a card. If you have a banger like that straight away, or there's a really impressive finish, it really can set the tone for the night, and that's what the first or second fight of the night. I think it'll be. I think it'll probably end in a finish, a dominant one, but I'm not sure who to go for. I think it's coin toss.
Absolutely. It's one of those ones where the names like don't necessarily jump out to a lot of people as well, which always end up, you're gonna know their names by the end of it. And I think that though they have much bigger names than those guys, it's a little bit the same case for Diego Lopez and Pat Sabatini opening up the main card. Because for people who don't tune into every card, they might look at that and go, I don't know those guys' names, but that is for sure. I mean, of course, it's one of the best fights on the card. There's a reason it's opening up the main card, but
perfect pay-per-view opener.
That should be a banger. Yeah.
Diego Lopez is awesome. I was highly critical of him getting a spot against Evloev earlier this year because I don't really like when guys come in and fight ranked contenders for their debuts just to save a pay-per-view. But I was really impressed by him. I thought he won the fight. I thought he managed to beat him about 2 rounds to 1. He didn't get the decision, and then I've forgotten who he beat in his most recent fight, but it was very quick submission. I remember that. So that was it.
Yeah.
I think Lopez is fantastic, and Sabatini's a great fighter too. So
this is one of those fights that really shows the depth of the division, right? In I think almost every other weight division, except maybe like lightweight and bantamweight, these two guys would be ranked.
Yeah.
Yet they're not. Yet in featherweight, they're not. There's so many guys you could say that about in that division too. So I think fights like this really show the strength of that division.
And I'm glad as well that it's getting that main card slot because just because they don't have super high name value doesn't mean that it's not worthy of being a pay-per-view opener because it absolutely is.
The main card, Madison Square Garden, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely massive.
Huge for those guys.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that when we speak about, comparing this card to other MSG cards, Matt Frivola versus Benoit Saint Denis is a fantastic fight, right? But when I initially looked at this card, I was like, well, that's high up for an MSG card, right? I don't mean it because it's not a good fight and those two guys aren't good because they are very good. But it does scream like prelim headliner to me. But that's not, again, because it isn't a great fight. Because I am excited for this fight. So it sounds harsh to downplay it before then talking about how good a fight it is, right? But I think that it is worth pointing out that there'll be a lot of people that probably look at this pay-per-view main card, and I mean, we don't have to pay for it on pay-per-view, so that makes it a lot sweeter, right? The deal. But there will be people looking at it going, when it has John Jones on it, you can kind of get away with that a lot, at least in terms of, the more casual fans who don't tune into every card. But regardless of that, Frivola versus Saint Denis is, as you want to talk about depth of a division.
Yeah.
155. They got some talent too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we saw Frivola in his last fight, huge win over Drew Dober. He's on the run of his career. Saint Denis, I forget who he beat in France, but I mean, he's got a lot of support over there. He's someone with a lot of potential. So great fight. Not much better than that. These guys are gonna, and we're getting a finish in this one. There's no doubt about that.
No doubt. I've been very impressed with Benoit Saint Denis. Like he made his debut against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, a weight class up on like 10 days notice. The referee clearly had money on him because he wasn't willing to stop the fight, despite Saint Denis being within an inch of his life. But he went back down to 155. I think he's gotten all submissions since then. He's won like 3 or 4 in a row. I think he beat Moises in Paris. Like really scrappy fight, but he came out on top, and that's a good win. Frivola, I don't want to take any credit, but like since I interviewed him last year, he's won like 2 fights. He was a big underdog in against Zaitara and Dober. So, if he wants to keep it going, if he wants to get himself to the lightweight title, he knows how to DM me. But yeah, I think this is an absolutely fantastic fight. And I agree with your sentiment, Kyle, that like this does deserve to be on a pay-per-view main card. But when I saw the fight announced initially, I was thinking that's probably the featured prelim, because that's where Frivola was in his last fight. Like, that fight with Dober easily could have been on the main card, but it was, kind of the feature prelim. So I don't know. Steve is just outraged that there's not a bigger main card here with more name value, and he's just left in frustration. I don't blame him, but I don't know what he's got against Matt Frivola.
It's a weird one. I think it's just Matt Frivola to me just screams feature prelim. He's that guy, right? Because he is such a kill or be killed guy. And you've got Saint Denis on this incredible run of finishes that you're like, oh yeah, that'll be the one that gets people to buy the pay-per-view. But at the same time, if Frivola is being an underdog in his fights and he's finishing those guys, then he needs to step up. And I think that, Saint Denis beating Thiago Moises, I was like, damn, like that's a big win. That, again, talk about the depth of the lightweight division. The fact that beating a guy like Thiago Moises isn't that big of a deal in the grand scheme of like moving you up the rankings is like, Jesus Christ, you have to beat some killers in order to get anywhere near that top 15. It's pretty outrageous.
Yeah, absolute murderer's row at lightweight, because as you're saying, if you beat Moises in any other division, you're probably in the top 15. So yeah, very, very happy with that fight. I'd like to see Matt do well because it reflects well on me. I've been telling people that the Jake Davis interview Good Omen is a real thing, because I was on a little hot streak there with like Modestus, with Frivola, with Loughran. Everyone was going undefeated, getting Cage Warriors titles, all that kind of thing. It was looking fantastic for me, and I think Frivola is the last hope. So
I'm a little bit gutted because I feel like I should wait for Steve for this because I want him to be a part of it. You know what?
He said, "Let me in."
Oh, he's already here. Oh, I was full screened. I'm glad that you commented that because I just wouldn't have gone out a full screen. I wouldn't have known you were here.
Nah, my laptop just completely froze and just shut down. I'm sorry, guys.
Sick.
What have I missed?
We finished talking about Frivola and Saint Denis, and I was going to set Jake up because I don't know this for sure, but I feel like if there are two fighters that I would imagine Jake has some kind of rant about, Mackenzie Dern and Jessica Andrade, I feel like there's got to be something that winds you up about either of them.
No, I quite like Andrade. Dern gets on my nerves sometimes with the accent switch and all that kind of thing, but I think that annoys everyone. I don't think that's just. Yeah. I don't think that's a me thing. I actually quite like this fight. I've seen people criticize it for being so high up on the main card, but Andrade is always exciting, win or lose. Dern is actually quite exciting. She's supremely talented. I think she just hasn't really been in the right position to break through for a title shot for a while. It seems like she gets to the kind of top 5 fights and then crumbles a little bit. But if she can beat Andrade, I think she's in the title conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a great fight. 2 high-ranked fighters in their division, of course, too. So I'm not as mad as that about the card placement as a lot of people seem to be, but I'm looking forward to this one. Andrade, like you said, always brings it. She needs this fight badly. She's on a bad run as of late. Dern, bit up, bit down, but I mean, if she can beat Andrade, she's in a real good position going forward. So I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at Mackenzie Dern's record, I completely had erased it from my mind that we had a headliner between her and Angela Hill earlier this year. I forgot that happened entirely. Like a blast from the past. That was.
Oh, I think the only person. The Apex days. There we go.
The only person who stayed up and watched that card in the world was Steve.
I'm trying to see.
I have no doubt Steve actually stayed.
What else was? I'm seeing what else was on this card.
This is a fun game that we can play from now on every episode. Did Steve stay up for that card?
May 20th. Was I watching anything else also on May 20th? Like, was there an AEW pay-per-view I was watching that day?
Oh, still, you still watch the UFC.
Was Collision running by then? Was that too early?
I don't think
because you would have. If it was, you probably did watch this card.
I don't know. Anyway, it's not that important. Yeah. Probably. I probably watched this card live.
Yes.
Let's just say that.
Now we get to talk about two of the best fights of the entire year. And we will, of course, start with the co-main event. But that main event matchup is so good that the only thing that could possibly get me as excited as something like that is a UK fighter being in a title fight, right? Tom Aspinall taking on Sergey Pavlovich on short notice for the interim title. Again, it's the heavyweight title. We don't need to play silly games, right? But, I mean, they have the fastest fight time in UFC history between them. Like, need I say anymore? Insane. This heavyweight title fight is so good. And we have had some heavyweight title fights in recent years that have been not really gathered that much hype. Even Jones versus Stipe, a lot of people weren't fans of. And then you're like, okay, well, here's the two most exciting guys, not only in the division, but on paper in the UFC. Sergey Pavlovich is an absolute machine. He's like a cartoon character. I can't believe he's real. And Tom Aspinall is the absolute boy. So I'm so excited for these two fights, but also Tom Aspinall's going to bring that heavyweight title home, and I'm so excited to watch it.
Oh, what a fight! What a fight! And again, I have to agree with the sentiment. This is for the heavyweight title. When Jones versus Stipe happens, again, for whatever reason, it's going to happen in some geriatric space outside of the heavyweight title picture. All right, just let that happen. Winner retires, loser also retires. This is for the heavyweight title. These are, in my opinion, probably the two best heavyweights in the world, besides Ngannou, maybe. But even still, Ngannou hasn't fought in MMA for a long time, so there is a real claim that the winner of this fight is the best heavyweight on the planet. Pavlovich is just like something you'd make on a fucking UFC game. Like, yeah, I'm gonna make this 6'4" fucking giant with 100 punching power. Yeah, it'd be realistic. And then fucking Sergey Pavlovich comes out. Like, that's not fair. It's not fair you have to fight Sergey Pavlovich. But Tom Aspinall is doing it. He's doing it on short notice. So what a fucking set of bollocks on him. If there is anyone that's going to go out and beat Pavlovich, though, I think it is Aspinall. Because Aspinall is just that guy. Simple as.
Yeah, I mean, I think Aspinall on the ground is going to be huge in this one. Obviously, Pavlovich, he's Russian. He can do it on the ground too. But I mean, obviously, we've seen how slick Aspinall can be on the ground for heavyweight. I think that's going to be huge here. He just needs to avoid that right hand of Sergey Pavlovich. Get him to the ground, get it done. That's all we need. That's all we need, right?
It might not be as simple as that. I don't want to.
It might not be as simple as that.
I don't want to root
I don't
against
think it is
Tom.
as simple as that.
I really don't want to root against Tom. And I'm not rooting against him. I hope he wins. I like Pavlovich, but I hope Tom wins. But Jesus Christ, like you cannot make any mistakes with Pavlovich or he will just pulverize you. Like the thing coming into the Blades fight for Pavlovich was if Blades can shoot on him, he'll probably get him down. And that could spell a lot of trouble for Pavlovich because we saw what Overeem did. And Blades is a way better wrestler than Overeem.
Yeah.
And like Blade shot for one takedown and it didn't even phase Pavlovich. So I'm a little bit worried.
That's the one fight that makes me think. But let me list these guys that Pavlovich has knocked out in the UFC: Marcelo Golm, Maurice Green, Shamil Abdurakhimov, Derek Lewis, Tai Tuivasa, Curtis Blades. Tom Aspinall moves better, significantly better than all of those guys. He's going to keep it.
I think you're downplaying Shamil. All right. Shamil is still.
Can't believe you talk bad on the crochet boss like that. Unbelievable.
Bro, he led John Jones to the heavyweight title. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't. Don't be talking down on that name.
The super team, Maurice Green and Devin Clark getting John Jones ready.
Devin, who's it? Jorgen De Castro as well. What a squad. Well, no, like I do think Tom has a really good chance at winning, especially when you factor in his work on the ground. But Jesus Christ, like you cannot. You also, it's really difficult to pick against Pavlovich because if he can defend the takedown, the way I like to approach certain fights like this, when you have power punchers like Pavlovich and even Pereira in the main event, there is only so long you can stay away from the right hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have 25 minutes. Are you really going to be able to knock a hit with it across those 25 minutes? Pavlovich only needs one, because once he gets started, he just doesn't stop. So, I don't know. I really want to pick Tom.
And that's another question on Tom, right? We've never seen how he takes a shot.
Only time I've ever seen him get hit was against Arlovsky.
Yeah.
That's because, like, Tom is, like, I don't want to call him defensively irresponsible, but he does hold his head up quite high when he, like, lunging into exchanges. That worries me as well, because even against Marcin Tybura, he was just kind of wading into a lot of those exchanges, chin very high in the air. And Sergey Pavlovich is not Marcin Tybura. That's a really big step up in competition.
Yeah.
So I want to reluctantly say Pavlovich, but I hope Tom punches a hole through his head and brings the title home. Just go on, Tom. I know you can do it, son.
The annoying thing is, if it was anybody else fighting Sergey Pavlovich, I'd be so excited at the idea of the heavyweight champion in the UFC might just be this huge Russian dude that he looks like a video game character. He barely says a word, and then he just starches people and it, like, isn't even that bothered. Like, I would love that, right? Because he looks so intimidating. He is like the Ivan Drago of the UFC's heavyweight division, right? He's so scary.
I thought that was Volkov.
Yeah, no, let's not go there, right? Let's not go there. It's not Volkov. I was gonna say, if Kyle didn't say it, he's the closest thing we have to Drago in real life. A 6'4" Russian who just annihilates people.
I don't know anything about him. I don't know his backstory, where he came from, why he trains him. Like, I literally don't know a thing about him apart from if he punches you in the face, you're in trouble. Like, that is the only thing I know about him.
You don't need to know. You can sell someone on Sergey Pavlovich going, look at this fucker. Like, you don't even need to show them the highlights. You just show them a photo and they're like, yeah, I believe it. I believe he could be heavyweight champion. You know, he's a monster, man. He's an absolute monster. But then again, Aspinall, he's so quick. He moves so much better. He's got good jiu-jitsu. I don't want to watch because someone's going to lose. And it really annoys me.
This is genuinely, like, in terms of, like, high level fights, the hardest fight to pick in a long time, I feel.
Yeah.
I think maybe I differ to you guys in that, like, I do think obviously it's a scary fight because Pavlovich is so just terrifying as an idea, but I don't know. I'm fairly leaning, like, I'm not just like slightly leaning towards Tom in terms of like an actual pick, not just bias. Of course, I want Tom to win, but in terms of like the actual fight, I think I feel fairly confident. Obviously, it's scary because I don't want to be that confident because I'm like, I could go so wrong so quickly. But I think that the big thing for me with Pavlovich was what happens when he fights Curtis Blades, and of course we saw what happens. And you probably could have, for a long time, I thought the same about Tom Aspinall. I was like, I think he can beat everyone, but what happens with Curtis Blades? But I just look at what Pavlovich did to Blades, and I'm like, Tom Aspinall is so much better than what Curtis Blades did. I know that they have different skill sets, but I just the simple thing for me, Jake said about when you have a guy that has that crazy power, you can only avoid it for so long. But Tom Aspinall must have the record for least strikes absorbed in, I don't even know how many UFC fights he's had now. What, like 5 or 6 maybe? Like,
he's got to be up there. Yeah.
There's no one better in the UFC. I know it's a heavyweight division. Guys are slower. They don't throw as much, but there is nobody in the UFC that gets hit as little as Tom Aspinall. So if there's a guy that can do it, it is him. And it just feels like the time. But I do love Sergey Pavlovich, and I don't want him to win. But if he did, then the man is incredible. Like I said, I know nothing about him, but he's an enigma. If you have him and Alex Pereira both win titles on this card, it's like we are living in a crazy world where these two just stone-faced killers are just like, I'm just going to walk into the UFC and win the title, and what's up? Like,
and like on Tom, and like Kyle, I am leaning towards Tom, but I don't think I'm as confident in that pick as you are. But you mentioned, like, if Sergey wins, for Tom's a 30-year-old heavyweight. He'll be back. if he loses this one, it's not going to be his last title fight.
In terms of the heavyweight division, being 30 is like being 26. You know, like it's just
23.
Yeah, no, like what you only reach about 30 once you get to 36 at heavyweight. time moves a little bit differently.
Yeah,
at heavyweight. Like Stipe is only like 32, which is really impressive. So apparently Stipe is still in the prime of his career and able for fucking world title fights. So fair play to him.
It is pretty crazy as well, like how much, like in the build-up to the London card, we spoke so much about how Tom should be fighting a higher-ranked opponent, and then it's like a few months later, he's fighting Sergey Pavlovich for the interim title at Madison Square Garden. Like,
it's crazy sport. Yeah. We're like just a few months ago when we were doing an episode of this, we were just talking like this is going to be too easy for Tom. He's just going to run through Tabora, and I was sitting there going, "Why do you think Tom might get fucking slumped?" Which is really weird to say. Yeah, my prediction: Pavlovich in round 1, but I really wouldn't be surprised if it's Aspinall in round 1. I don't think this gets out of the first round. I think someone is going to flatten the other.
Not to like ruin the mood here, but we also said that last week's main event wouldn't get out of the first round either. No one thought that fight was getting out of the first round.
Yeah, but that's Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis has the way to subvert expectations.
If Tom Aspinall holds down Sergey Pavlovich for 5 rounds, and in between is like looking up at the clock, doing all this stuff, I will be standing up cheering.
I will be jumping in the air during that fight if that happens.
Yeah, I would love it. Bring on the booze. I will love every second.
Give him a Mark Diakasey game plan.
Yes.
Yes.
Mark D1 Casey. What a fucking performance he put on there at the weekend. I watched it, but I don't remember any of it. But look, fuck Mark Casey. Tom Aspinall.
Whoa. No.
I like Mark. I rescind that statement. I quite like Mark Casey, but it's not about Mark Casey. Tom Aspinall. I really hope he does it. We
just worked to Mark Diakasey mention into talking about the heavyweight championship of the world.
That's how good we are on this fucking show. We can bring anything back on topic. Well,
I'd say it's the opposite way around. We can take any topic off topic.
Yeah,
getting it back usually takes a little while. We've spoken a lot about how crazy this sport has been, and that co-main event of a late notice replacement is insane. And of course, it was the fight that we all want to see in the heavyweight division. But I can comfortably say that if you were to ask me what fight do I want to see the most in the UFC period, I think it would be this main event: Yuri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira, vacant light heavyweight title. I don't know that. I'd have to really think about it, but I don't know if there's two characters, let alone watching them as fighters, because they're both two of the most exciting fighters to watch in the UFC. But I don't know if there's two characters that I've enjoyed just watching them clash more than these two guys. Like it's fascinating to think about every single aspect of this fight. Like these two guys are like just so one in a million, both in their fighting styles and also their personalities. Like this fight's absolutely ridiculous, and I can't believe that we are so close to it. It hasn't really hit me yet, the excitement of it, but when it gets close, I can't wait.
What a fight, man. What a fight. And it feels like we're finally getting back on track at light heavyweight. Because
don't say that, Jake. It'll end in a draw.
But like, it almost makes you forget the dark days of Jamal Hill being champion.
What, for all fucking 4 months that it lasted? Or whatever it was, 4 or 5 months.
Technically, he's still the champion.
Technically, he's still the champion.
Still the bell rigs. So let's just not jinx anything.
But like when you think about how mad light heavyweight has been for the last 3 years, Jones left, then Blachowicz became champion, which no one expected. He beat Adesanya, which no one expected. He lost to Teixeira, which no one expected. Everyone expected Teixeira versus Prochazka to be a crazy fight, but Prochazka to beat him by submission in the 5th round, I don't think anyone expected. Then Yuri rips his shoulder in half. Blachowicz and Ankalaev fight to a draw. Jamal Hill beats him by decision, and then he fucking blows his Achilles out, and now we're back to
playing basketball.
Playing basketball against Daniel Cormier and Bilal Muhammad. And now we're back to Prochazka, and he's fighting Alex Pereira for the title. Like, can we have a champion that doesn't bullshit us, right? It's just it just seems like for the last couple of years, there's just a champion there's always some bullshit going on, whether it's massive upsets that ruin the title picture, or a champion getting rid of belts, or people going to draws. All right, can we have a normal light heavyweight champion?
I mean, as much as I'd like to agree with you,
normal.
Yeah, like normal.
Neither of these guys are normal.
I think both guys are capable of being the best in the world for a long time. They are both that good. I think they are both also capable of losing to literally anybody, because Alex Pereira is such an enigma, because he isn't that good at MMA, but he's so good at knocking people out that it doesn't matter. It makes no sense. And Yuri Prochazka, I don't even know where to begin with Yuri Prochazka. I'm like, he's so good, but then sometimes I watch him and I'm like, is he? I don't know.
No, that's the thing.
Then he chokes out Glover Teixeira, and the world doesn't make any sense.
I went back and I rewatched all of Prochazka's UFC fights, and I'm like, if this was any other fighter, you'd say he's dog shit. Like, he's got no technique. He just jumps around and fucking stands waiting for you to hit him, but he does it so well. Like, honestly, I think he's beaten people in the UFC by confusion more than anything else. People stand there going like, I don't like, he's just leaving himself open. Should I hit him? Like, it seems too obvious. Seems like a trap. And then before you know it, he's hit you with a fucking flying knee, spinning elbow. You know,
this is the problem, right? It's I did the same thing. I went back and watched all of his fights to make notes for a video of why he can win the fight. And I'm going into it and I'm like, of course he can win the fight, man. Yuri Prochazka is so good. He's so creative. And then I'm watching his first two fights, right? Volkan Oezdemir and Dominic Reyes, who admittedly, you know, added context from those fights being a while ago has not made those fights look any better than they were at the time, right? At the time they were impressive, not anymore. But you watch it and I'm like, I'm like, have I been wrong about Yuri Prochazka the whole time? Because he's so effective. But I'm like, Alex Pereira could just stand still and let Yuri dance around him and just knock him out with one shot as soon as he comes in. I don't know. I look at it and I'm like, I don't know whether Alex Pereira can be confused. Like, I think you could confuse a Volkan Oezdemir or a Dominic Reyes, like you said, by dancing around and being weird. Alex Pereira, I'm like, I don't know if anything confuses him.
Hit him.
He's just gonna stand there and be like, "What are you doing?" Like, it's mental. But I'm also like, Yuri might do it though.
He just would though, wouldn't he? He just would. He just stand in my video, fucking bop his head around with his, like, you see his new antenna. It's way bigger than the last one.
Exactly. This, like, on one hand, you look at it and you go, Yuri Prochazka is such a terrible matchup for Alex Pereira. But then I'm also like, if there's anyone who's crazy enough to stand and strike with Alex Pereira and beat him, despite his technique being all over the place, it's him. It's that guy that lives like a samurai. Like,
it's such a good fight. It's such a good fight in terms of the fight itself. But just looking at it, like, Pereira is like, I don't know. He just fucking goes out in the jungle. He just shoots things, and he's just he's fucking awesome. And then Prochazka just lives out in the middle of fuck knows where and punches trees all day. Like, how can you not match them up? It's the perfect fight.
This is what the UFC has made for. This is what the UFC has made for.
It's absolutely shameful that they didn't use that for the poster, though. That they didn't go Samurai Prochazka and fucking, like, war paint Pereira or something. It would have been perfect. Predictions. Who have we got? I'm gonna save mine because mine actually boils down to being quite simple.
I genuinely don't know.
That's fair. That's very fair.
I will have an answer by the time I send you staff picks, but I don't know right now.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
The problem is
the staff picks article.
I haven't put it up. I have it saved. Yeah, because it's just my picks in it currently, and I'm not posting staff picks with just mine in it. I'd turn it into a Jake's Takes or something. It's like, oh, here are the staff picks. It's just the one cunt who bothered to fucking write them.
Much like the co-main event, there is someone I want to win, and I'm like, I'm not so sure if they're going to. So that's why I'm a bit on the fence.
Yeah.
I honestly, this is one of those rare fights where I really don't mind who wins because I love both guys so much, and they both have incredible like stories and stuff. I would be. If Alex loses, I'm like, I'm obviously incredibly happy for Yuri, but I'm also like, oh, well, he'll be back and he'll do some crazy stuff, either back at middleweight or he'll just stick around at light heavy, whatever. If Yuri loses, I would definitely be more disappointed because the way he lost the title through injury and has that to come back, like that would be really good.
Yuri deserves to win, but
yeah,
I don't know he will.
I think we deserve the win, right? Because of what happened to him, we had to go through Jamal Hill as champion. All right, it's only fair he restores some fucking balance now.
I think the standard thought process, the reason that Alex Pereira is the betting favorite is a lot of people will go, it's probably going to be a striking contest. Yuri gets hit a lot. He nearly got finished by Glover multiple times. If Alex Pereira hits him with one shot, it could be over, right? Especially because he doesn't have a traditional defensive shell in the slightest sense of the word. Like, his hands are like one's up here and one's over there, and like it just makes no sense. It looks like he's balancing on something at all times. The problem with it is, and I've had this problem whenever talking about Tony Ferguson over the years, is you go, he's probably a better mixed martial artist, but I think he might be too crazy to know that. Like, I think Yuri Prochazka knows he said multiple times, I'm a better martial artist than Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira is not a good martial artist, and yet I still think he might just go out there and strike with him, just cause. Like, and that's what's causing me issues. Is I think Alex Pereira wins the striking matchup, and I don't know whether Yuri, as much as it would be incredible to see, he ain't gonna do a Chimaev and go out there and just shoot a double. Which, at the end of the day, that's how you're gonna beat Alex Pereira, right? You need someone that's just gonna do that. But on the flip side of that, Alex Pereira has fought too many times in the UFC for that not to have happened already. Like, surely that would have happened by now. We saw Jan Blachowicz take him down for a round, and then the other 2 rounds, he couldn't do it. No. Like, there's so many questions in this fight, and I don't feel like any of them have a definitive answer apart from Alex Pereira can knock him out if he stays standing for too long. And that is why I feel like I'm going slightly towards Alex Pereira, but if there is a fighter that is harder to predict in the world than Yuri Prochazka, show me him, because they'll be my new favorite fighter.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'm going with Pereira just on the logic, the same as the Pavlovich logic. Over 25 minutes, how long can you really stay away from that left hook? Especially when you fucking run around like Prochazka does. I love Prochazka. I'm so happy when he won the belt. And I would like to see him win this. I like Pereira too. I'd like to see him win. I have a good feeling Prochazka might knock him out. I think Prochazka might just like, not even like a straight punch or a hook or anything conventional. He might just like standing up and fist him or something.
Like he's knocking on a door or something, yeah.
Yeah, just something like, just kind of one of them things, right? It just hit him, Pereira goes down, it's knockout of the year. But I'm going to side with logic on this one. I'm going to side with my brain over my heart. I want to say Pereira in round 2. I think it's so hard to say. It's so hard to say, but I'm going to go on the same logic that I'm picking Pavlovich. That can you really stay away from it for 25 minutes, especially when you jump around like a maniac?
See, Pereira's and I am still here. My camera just decided not to work. Pereira is probably the smart pick, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's fair. Because like we said, it's going to be a striking match. It's going to be a striking matchup. Prochazka gets hit. Pereira hits really hard. Simple. I don't know if it's that simple to predict Yuri Prochazka because you have no idea what that man's going to do. So I'm a big Yuri Prochazka fan. I'm a rising era Yuri Prochazka fan. I used to watch that guy beat up CB Dollaway and Fabio Maldonado. And King Mo.
Fucking lost it. He lost to King Mo. It's one of those weird losses in MMA, like how fucking Masvidal lost to Rafael Assunção. It's one of them losses you just look at it as like, What was going on in that point in your career that happened?
Yeah. So I would love it if he wins. I think I'm going to pick Alex Pereira. I think I'm leaning towards Alex on this one, just because, as a technical striker and as a power puncher, he leads in those categories.
Yeah. Honestly, though, if Aspinall and Pereira come out with belts, I'm going to be very happy, but I'm not going to be surprised whatsoever. They're two fights that come down to about 50-50 on both sides. What are the odds, actually? We're looking at...
let's have a look. Let's pull these odds up.
When I looked at when it was announced, Aspinall Pavlovich was very close. I think literally the day that I looked, it flipped between them both. It went Aspinall Pavlovich back to Aspinall. I would imagine Aspinall is a slight favorite.
Yeah, Pereira is a small favorite. Both Aspinall and Pavlovich are both sitting around -120, which for a title fight is very rare. It's rare that you get title fights with such close odds.
Yeah.
The only other recent one I can think of is Sterling versus Cejudo. I think that was about even money on both sides. And that was a really fucking close fight. And it was a hard one to predict as well because there was a lot of unknowns. But
what about Sterling versus O'Malley? That feels like it would have been close, Sterling and O'Malley.
Sterling was about -260.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. That was an upset, to be fair, even though it doesn't really feel like one. It was just more of a big moment. I take back my predictions. I just hope they have fun.
I just feel like every single thing that happens in this main event is going to be incredible. Like literally everything. Like, can you imagine? First of all, we've all predicted Alex Pereira to win. Alex Pereira is 10 fights into his MMA career, and he could be a 2-time champion in the UFC.
And you said it yourself. He's not that good.
This is what I mean. It's so crazy. He has had way too many fights in the UFC for that not to have been exposed yet. We saw Israel Adesanya out grappling. What are we doing? How is he just going up a division and going, nah, I'm going to be a top contender. Oh, I'm going to win the belt. It's so strange. There could be, I don't think it's going to happen, but at this point, I'm considering every possibility. Can you imagine if Alex Pereira catches Yuri with a left hook and Yuri just eats it? I don't know.
Could happen. Honestly, could happen.
If there's anyone in the UFC that I think could
Alex is going to win by submission.
Oh my God. Oh no.
Yeah, sounds about right. It honestly does sound, it sounds about right. I wouldn't be surprised if the first round goes by and neither of them throw a punch. They just stand in the middle of the octagon, just staring at each other and just waiting for something to happen and just fucking Prochazka is just kind of doing this and Pereira is standing here like this. I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'd enjoy every second of it.
Oh yeah, I don't get. Alex Pereira can stand there like the Easter Island statue the whole time, and Yuri Prochazka can dance around like Eddie Gordo, and I'll have the best time. It'd be incredible. That works for me. But I feel like again, we've a lot of these questions have boiled down to but if there's anyone crazy enough to do that, it's Yuri. And as much as I'm like, any title fight could be boring. Especially when you're fighting Alex Pereira, because you really don't want to overcommit. If there's anyone that will overcommit against Alex Pereira for the sake of just being entertaining, it is Yuri Prochazka.
Yeah, 100%.
An absolutely ridiculous fight that literally anything could happen in this fight, and it will be one of the biggest stories of the year. That's no matter what happens, it's going to be something mental. So I can't wait for this fight. It's going to be so good.
My final prediction, this fight ends up being a tag team between Glover Teixeira and Jamal Hill.
Jamal Hill? I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, that's just the way I see things. I'm going to put that down for staff.
Whose team is Jamal Hill on? Because he doesn't like Yuri.
Why are Jamal and Yuri partners?
That's just for the sake of it. Why not? Team injured champions.
It's like when the feuding guys win the tag titles.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's building the alliance so you can break
Shawn
them
Michaels
apart
and John
afterwards.
Cena.
Yeah.
I understood that reference. Very rare moment when there's pro wrestling talked about on Marble Money.
I think that pretty much sums it up. I don't know if you guys have got anything else that you want to talk about from this upcoming weekend. But I think that's just about it.
Yeah, I've got nothing else to do except look forward to the fights. That's actually not true. That was a fib. I fibbed. I'm going out for 2 days straight. I may miss this entire card. It's possible.
Talk about how great this card is. These two fights so exciting. I may
yeah, it's like I'm going.
It's not like it's Dern versus Hill.
No. Look, I'd never miss Dern versus Hill. Don't be fucking ridiculous, Steve. Right? No, I'll watch it. I just be a little tired and maybe it's slightly bit hungover, but it's fine. It happens.
No. I will be at. If we're talking about our weekends, tomorrow I will be at Pro Wrestling Eve in London, and then Saturday, myself and Kyle will be at the Cage Warriors card. So very excited for that one.
I will be in the pub. I'm gonna have a great time. I might start a few fights just in case I miss Cage Warriors. You know, that's fine. Make fights yourself. Video them, put them up on. Just make sure you don't miss my debacles in the pub. Go to @ViolentMoneyTV on Twitter.
I feel like that's the perfect way
We're going to be
to
live tweeting Cage Warriors. Jake's going to be live tweeting the pub.
All right, good stuff. That's it. I just feel like we could talk about those two fights forever. So I'm sure that, like I said, no matter what happens, there's going to be something to talk about come Monday. So
emergency podcast on Monday.
We will try to get an emergency podcast in. But until then,
emergency
enjoy the fight.
Tom Aspinall is the heavyweight champion podcast. And we can just reminisce about the time I hit him with a door.